The K63 wireless mechanical gaming keyboard from Corsair can connect to your computer via ultra-fast 1 millisecond 2.4 GHz wireless technology or low latency Bluetooth, and features per-key blue LEDs, 15 hours of gameplay on a single charge, and genuine Cherry MX switches. It's lapboard ready too, so click the sponsor link in the description for more information.
Excellent!
Hello everyone and welcome to Paul's Hardware. Today's video is about RGB. And has RGB gone too far? This is a part 1 video, so there will be a second part coming up. And I have this entire build arrayed here in front of me. I'm gonna put this together today, but I'm a little sad about it. I'm a little torn. I'm not exactly sure what to do because ever since MSI launched their godlike gaming motherboard back in like 2015 or whenever that was, RGB has been everywhere. You can't really escape it when it comes to building a gaming PC. And so I am fully embracing it with this build. This is over-the-top RGB. Just about everything has some RGB elements involved, except maybe the power supply, because I have to maintain my dignity somehow. But I'm gonna assemble this together. We're gonna take a closer look at Team's T-Force Delta RGB SSD, adding to the list of RGB things you can have in your computer. And once I get this all put together, I would like you guys to let me know in the comments whether you think RGB is awesome, or it sucks, or if you just don't care. That said, this is also a pretty powerful gaming PC when it comes to the core components. We got a 2700X as well as a Vega 64 graphics card. So let's take a closer look at what's actually going to be installed in the Cooler Master H500P White. So the case is the H500P White. As just mentioned, it's got the mesh in the front, so it's actually got good airflow. The redesign of this case has been getting really good reviews, so I'm excited to be building in it, and the white finish should provide a lot of reflective cover for all of our RGB stuff. 2700X is the CPU. This is pretty much the highest end CPU that AMD has on their mainstream platform. It's an 8-core 16-thread processor, and it will boost itself up to like 4.2 plus gigahertz on a couple cores. It's a very nice CPU. Crosshair 7 Hero motherboard from Asus is going to be the core of our system, and I needed something that had addressable digital RGB header on it, as well as the Asus Aura software, which will combine with like the graphics card, and I believe our Master Liquid stuff is also compatible with it. Can I double check on that? Yes, it is. We got the Asus Aura Sync support. Graphics card, just sticking with the AMD theme, is the RX Vega 64, also from Asus, also compatible with the entire RGB ecosystem that we're going for here. And then of course, kind of the source of this build, the reason why I'm putting it together and showing you the RGB everything, is that Team recently sent over this Nighthawk kit of RGB memory, also Aura compatible. Really cool RGB element designs on the top of the DIMMs, and a nice flavor difference from the G.Skill RGB stuff that I've been using for quite some time. And then of course, the T-Force Delta, an RGB SSD. Did you guys think this was a necessary thing? I'm not sure. I'm still waiting on your feedback, but I'll install it and show you guys how it looks. Rounding things out, we got a 750 watt, 80 plus gold rated EVGA Supernova power supply, solid power supply, and I've got the black cabling kit for that as well, which is nice. And then for our cooler, the Master Liquid ML240R RGB, with RGB on the block pump, RGB on the fans, and since I've got this Master Fan expansion kit, I might even go push-pull on that, since I've got some extra 120mm RGB fans. So there are the parts. I'm gonna get this put together, and then I will show you guys the end result. Let's get started.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
I gave that to him too as a gift.
Oh my god. How did that... I did not know how that...
What kind of mic is it?
It's an ADK.
It's an 8-51 Type 3 Class A solid state.
It's fine, Joe. Nothing wrong with it.
Oh man.
Put it over there to be dissected later on. I tried to catch it.
That bugged me.
I'm sorry. I really did not behave.
Hey.
Just lining up the CPU and the cooler mount right here, and noticing if we position it this way, the tubing comes out on this side, and it might still fit, but some potential clearance issues with the RAM there. And we can flip it this way, but then our logo's upside down. So I have just discovered on this new Cooler Master All-in-One, look at that, it just flips off. Sweet. It's got 4 little brackets in there, so you can rotate it 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or opposite, the same rotation. Thank you, Cooler Master. I like this feature on your all-in-one liquid cooler. So I'm feeling pretty silly right now because I completely ignored the fact that this case has a very convenient feature for installing a CPU cooler, a liquid cooler like this one, which is that the entire top bracket for it comes off. So you can mount everything outside the case and have a much easier time. We're in the home stretch here, guys, but I've noticed that I have a bunch of little 3-pin digital RGB leads coming out the back of the case from all the fans and stuff. Cooler Master has included this little piece right here. So this has some built-in controls on it, so you can control the RGB LEDs. Or if you have a motherboard that you want to use and use this as a splitter, it's got inputs over here. So 12 volts and the 3-pin for digital control. So this is the older style plug, this is the newer style plug. Feed these over from your motherboard and then it will feed your motherboard controls through to this. Needs a USB plug too. Then we got a bunch of 3-pin connection points on the sides there. We've got some other leads here. You can actually use this to pass through your front panel connectors. I'm not doing that today, but and then a few more connection points along the side, powered by SATA. So guys, at this point, all the hardware is pretty much installed in the case, and what I'm realizing is that I have 7 different digitally controlled RGB devices. 4 fans at the top, 1 more at the back makes 5. The control for the pump in the middle has a digital control, that makes 6, and then 7 for our Team T-Force Delta down here. We've also got these 2 front fans, but those are just using the 4-pin control rather than the 3-pin, so I've just taken those, they're on a splitter, and I plugged that directly into the motherboard, so we're good there. I'm actually really happy I chose this motherboard from Asus because it has 2 digital outputs, the 3 pins for RGB control, and it also has 2 non-digital outputs for RGB control, the 4-pin ones. So I have an extra 4-pin still, so that's good. I'm gonna need to take one of those digital outs and plug one of these devices in directly. I can plug 3 of them into this, and then I'll need to use the 4th output on this to work as an input on this little guy, and this little guy came along with the liquid cooler. This is just another little mini control device. It doesn't control quite as many devices, but it does have a splitter, so it controls 3. So that'll let me do 3 plus 3, 6 of 7, and then the 7th I can plug directly into that final 3-pin out on the motherboard. It's a magnet.
Oh, good.
I like that. It's got a magnet. Is this a magnet? This is a magnet too.
Awesome.
Hey, good job, Cooler Master. Good thinking. Well, okay guys, I now have a built computer here next to me with RGB LEDs wired up. I've only wired up the control unit at the back right now, so I can turn the system on and give you guys a bit of a light show, since I guess that's kind of the underlying theme of this whole video. Of course, I will be able to wire this up to the motherboard once I get the operating system installed, but for now, let's flip this switch and we have a power button. Let there be light. Okay, I've been waiting to say that. So guys, here's a look at my completed build with many RGBs going on everywhere, and I think this looks pretty sweet, although of course I am providing this for your feedback to let me know if you think RGB has actually gone too far these days. I'm not even taking it as far as I'm going to. I have a follow-up video planned for this one, and I have something special I think I'm going to be able to show you when that comes about. But for now, we have the two large 200mm RGB fans at the front providing intake, and those are good fans. They're nice and quiet. They move lots of air. Those are not addressable RGBs though, so you can see the entire fans kind of shift color from one to the next, as opposed to the addressable RGB fans which have individual RGBs that can change different colors, which is why the different parts of the fan blades there are different colors. There's also addressable RGB in the Cooler Master pump there at the center. I like the look of this. It's a little bit more subtle, and you can just sort of see the RGB behind there, which shines through at the edges a little bit. Team Nighthawk kit of RGB memory. This is my first time using this. I like the default out-of-the-box flashy dance that it does. Kind of gives you a little light show there. That's pretty cool. And since the top fans for the Master Liquid ML240R RGB are the same as the one in the back, they're going to look pretty much the same. I was barely able to fit this push-pull configuration in here, in case anyone was wondering if this is going to fit. I did have to put a little bit of pressure on the top of the motherboard on one of the heat sinks, but it did fit in there without too much difficulty. Here's a look at the exhaust for those two fans on the top. There is a plastic piece right here, but there's a decent amount of space there, and I can actually feel the air coming out on the sides right here from those fans. So they are getting some decent amount of airflow there. And finally, the Team T-Force Delta SSD. If you're gonna invest in an SSD with RGB lighting, you definitely want a case that can display that. The only thing I'm wishing I had here was a second one, because this case has two nicely positioned SSD trays. Again, a little bit of a cramped spacing issue back there, depending on the front panel connectors you're gonna plug in to the motherboard. But I think this looks pretty nice. Definitely stands out a lot more. You're gonna have a lot more people being like, hey, what SSD is that? But for a case like the H500P, where you can have it here, or like some NZXT cases that allow you to position it right here, I think that's a pretty cool device. Of course, though, it's up to you guys to tell me how cool you actually think it is. And finally, I have reinstalled the tempered glass side panel to give you guys the completed look. And I have to admit, I was a little skeptical about this build when I started out earlier today. I was like, I want to make an all RGB system. Now that it's all put together, I think it actually looks pretty cool. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Of course, I'll post links to the products I've used today in the description as well. So click on those if you want to help me out. They are affiliate links, so I appreciate when you guys click those. I get a small commission when you buy stuff from Amazon after clicking my links. That's all for this video though, guys. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.